Have you ever wondered about how to make people less anxious about the current pandemic and what makes some people more stressful than others? In this episode, we're going to dig up the psychological reasons of why some people might be overstressed, and if so, how to detect it and how to treat it. Hi, I'm Mark, this is Psych On Sight. One, the Pygmalion effect. For decades, military commanders considered extremely stressed men on the front lines as cowards, and when they were relieved from frontline duties, those commanders said that it would only make them more sick. They thought that expecting problems would only cause problems, and when these men were put back to serve, they were more likely to get injured or even killed. This ended up being a told you so situation. So, why did this happen? Well, in a way, their own expectations tricked their brain into believing that these were facts, not guesses. This is because your mind handles expectations in the same way as it handles reality. So, when the whole world is telling you how serious the current pandemic is and that it's natural to be worried, your brain mistakes these expectations of an anxiety for an anxiety itself. The result is a contagious anxiety. This simple psychological fact was actually a breakthrough, because now we know that if we expect certain behaviors from people, in our case an anxiety, and we treat them differently, that treatment is very likely to affect their behavior. This is the Pygmalion effect. That is the name of a Greek sculptor who fell in love with a statue of a woman he created that the gods actually brought her to life. 2. The bandwagon effect. This is basically doing things with your mind, justifying them to you without knowing that you're actually doing them because other people are doing them too. This concept was originally formed in the 19th century as people were encouraged to hop on the bandwagon of a potential candidate. When you see some people doing something, your brain thinks, oh, it must be good. It whispers to you, I better hop on the bandwagon too before it's too late. Sometimes it's intentional. Commercials use it all the time in marketing. Their goal is to make your brain whispers to you, oh, that girl who bought that product is very beautiful and happy. I want to be happy too. I should buy this product. Or in our case, you think you should buy toilet paper to be safe too. For all those who are doing it, must be doing it for a reason. This tendency to conform to the actions and beliefs of others can be devastating. It can create a herd mentality before you know it, for we are all so dramatically affected by the people around us, and their actions quite dictate our own actions. This is also because of another phenomenon called information overload, which I'll explain later in this episode. And anxiety is also contagious. A recent study by German researchers showed that when you witness someone in stress, your brain tends to become more stressed too. This is called empathic stress. So, when you witness worrying on a global scale, it's no wonder that your levels of empathic stress go up to the roof. 3. The zero-risk bias. Reports of stolen toilet paper from supermarkets in many places were all over the world. You might think of it as a classic panic buying, but there is more into it. And while toilet paper won't save you from the virus, one reason to explain the phenomenon is that your brain has a strong irrational tendency or preference to behave in a certain way in situations with absolute certainty. To your brain, reducing a risk from 5% to 0% is way more better than reducing the same risk from 55% to 50%. Even though the risk reduction was the same in both cases, it's your brain that creates the illusion that the 5 to 0% one is better. Well, back to toilet paper theft. If you have toilet paper, plenty of it, you'd have no issues with regular bathroom visits. Now the risk is down to 0%. Even if the risk was initially at 5%, your brain finds eliminating a risk completely is far more appealing than reducing a more serious threat by a higher percentage, from like 50 to 30%. Because then there would still be a threat. Your brain thinks, oh, that's one less thing to worry about. And while you can't reduce the risk of catching a disease to 0%, people choose to eliminate a trivial threat to 0% rather than reducing the risk of catching a disease by a higher percentage. It's funny, but that's how your brain works. 4. Information overload. Information overload is the difficulty of understanding a situation because of the excessive information you get exposed to about the issue, so you would have a hard time making good decisions. When the pandemic started, experts were all over the telly explaining all the things about the virus in technical terms, most of the cases. A recent study stated 5 reasons for information overload. Most of us experienced all the 5 reasons during the current pandemic. There was always too much information from multiple sources, most of it were simply not important. This flood of information made it difficult for you to manage it or even take the time to understand it all. This causes overload, makes you confused, so you can't think straight and take irrational decisions instead, like go to the store to buy all the toilet paper you can find, because you were exposed to information that people are struggling to find toilet paper in local stores. That's too much information that your brain simply doesn't know how to handle, so it makes you take random and irrational actions instead. This overload can also cause a sort of addiction, so limiting yourself to 15 to 20 minutes a day of official written sources of information is also a great idea. 5. The Suncoast Fallacy. We generally believe that when we put something in, we should get something out, let it be effort, time or money. That being said, sometimes we just lose. We don't get something in return of our effort, time and money. And because our minds are programmed for regaining, we start to cling to the idea of getting something back by putting in more and more resources. And when we don't get results, we think that's because we need to put in more and more time, effort and money. And in the current crisis, you might have started to buy much of hand sanitizers and toilet paper, but when you find yourself so stressed out and anxious, even with plenty of toilet paper and sanitizers, instead of admitting that you made a mistake and that toilet paper won't reduce your anxiety, you decide to buy more and more things, because looking backwards, you find yourself investing so much in things like buying that you can't afford being wrong now. And when most of us think like this, we all go to the store wanting to buy more things. It becomes clear to us, at least at the time, that this might actually be a solution, when it's not. Actually, all it does is spinning the wheel of panic buying. 6. Motivated reasoning. In this flood of information about the virus, you might get exposed to 2 pieces of contradictory information. And because we're emotional beings, your mind will develop an emotionally based reasoning for one and change the other piece of information to make things balanced again. When you hear that there are 200,000 people who died from the virus, you might think, that's only a fraction of the world's population. I shouldn't stay quarantined. Or you might think, oh, 200,000 people, that's a lot. And you get convinced and you stay home. What happened is that your brain changed the intensity of one piece of information to avoid being contradictory to what you believe in. That's a concept I borrowed from social psychology called cognitive dissonance. Your brain wants to maintain what you originally believe about the pandemic, and so it acts accordingly with any new piece of information, tweaking it to maintain the balance and avoid causing you discomfort. The result is your decisions and your reasoning are controlled by emotions, which now dictates how you perceive the facts. So, if your thoughts about the pandemic are making you more and more anxious and stressed, your mind will process every new piece of information in a way that increases your actual anxiety. But I'll explain how to break this cycle in the next part of the episode. 7. The halo error, or the halo effect, which is a tendency for a good impression of someone to extend to all his or her qualities. When you say you like someone, your brain suggests that whatever this person is saying must be true or reasonable. This effect extends to what I call an expert situation, where you, or rather your brain, assumes that every piece of information coming from someone with expertise is an expert advice, and then it should be true. Again, this halo effect does not neglect evidence, but rather it's just the tendency to overgeneralize everything related to someone in their field of expertise. A priest would be holy in everything he did. A comedian would be a 24/7 joke machine. You get the idea. This is very dangerous actually, because in the times of crisis, you'll find many experts telling you different things, and your poor brain takes them all in. This would get you very confused and angry because you think that something is wrong with you, because the expert cannot be wrong. So when an expert on the telly telling you the standard control and escape advice that you should control the situation and escape from it, and it doesn't work, it's not because there is something wrong with you, but because you can't actually escape from the current pandemic or control the situation. It's simply out of your hand. 8. Catastrophizing. The New York Times reported on two brothers in Tennessee who bought all the hand sanitizers from local stores, collecting thousands of bottles, and then they started selling the one bottle online for $70. That's robbery, right? But they sold them all, so why did people buy them? Research shows that when you feel a threat or a danger, your body starts to react. But another fallacy that your brain naturally tends to make is mistaking uncertainty for bad outcomes. Clearing the shelves of toilet paper? Buy hand sanitizers for $70 a bottle. Why not? Your brain puts it like this. You're uncertain how things are gonna turn. That means the things are gonna turn badly. Badly enough for you to run into the store and buy crazy amounts of things. Linking uncertainty to the worst possible outcome is one definition of catastrophizing. This leads your brain to jump to the worst possible outcome when there is uncertainty. In our case, you would think that the world is gonna end and we're all gonna die. And when your mind thinks that, you become more and more stressed, even if you realistically know that that's not gonna happen. So if you're the kind of person who thinks that they're gonna get fired immediately after they make a mistake at work, you're probably doing it in this case too. I'll teach you how to stop this in the next part of this episode. 9. Distraction conflict. That's another concept from social psychology that means that the presence of an audience in comedy shows or football matches increases the comedians or the players' performance because their focus or attention is divided between the task and the distraction in a way that increases performance to compensate for the attention going to the audience. In our case, some people need distractions because their focus or attention is divided between the task and the distraction in a way that increases performance to compensate for the attention going to the audience. In our case, some people need distractions to perform better, surviving the pandemic. Think loud music when studying. And in some cases, these distractions could be extreme, like being strong believers in conspiracy theories. Their brains feel that they would be more capable of surviving if they believed in such things. But what are the psychological factors that make them do that? Well, if you found yourself tending to believe one theory, the Chinese made the virus or the Germans have a secret vaccine, 3 British researchers found out that you're probably desperate to find out what's going on, or you're desperate to feel that you're in control of the situation because you would be the one who got it right, or that you're desperate to see yourself as intellectually capable and maintain a positive self-image. So it's more likely that you're not in control of your life, or you have a lot of things that you can't explain in your life, or just you might be socially marginalized. 10. History of anxiety. Anxiety is the most common mental illness in countries like the United States and the Kingdom. In fact, over 40 million adults and 25% of children ranging from 13 to 18 years of age suffer from anxiety. And while depression and anxiety can negatively affect your immune system according to recent research, if you've ever suffered from any depressive disorder or any form of anxiety, that means that you're more susceptible to be more and more anxious about the current pandemic. You need to be aware of this so you don't blame yourself for being too stressed out or anxious if you have a history of depression or anxiety. A recent study from a medical journal called The Lancet shows that the psychological impact from the quarantine could be great. Issues from anxiety and anger to sleep disturbances and PTSD. In fact, and let me read this to you. A study on quarantine patients from a similar situation of a previous viral attack in 2003 found out up to 30% of them suffered from PTSD because of things like infection fears, frustration, boredom, not enough supplies, uncertainty, financial loss, and stigma associated with contracting the disease. Also, you're more likely to develop something called acute stress disorder. That means that you become constantly stressed because of a constant stressor for a long period of time. There's a great book about this by Richard Bryan. I'll leave you the link in the description if you want to check it out. Also, in the next part of this episode, I'll be giving you all what psychology has to offer in order to fight this and be better, so stay tuned. Before I get to the final question, don't forget to click on the like button. Share the episode on your favorite social media if you like it, and please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell below so you won't miss any of our future videos. With that being said, let me know in the comment section below which one of the 10 reasons that you experienced personally, or if you know someone that did. I'm looking forward to your stories and your questions. Also, let me know what you want me to do for the next episode. Thank you for watching. Till next time, peace.